Welcome everybody to today's H.E.L.P. Opioid Initiative meeting in Lexington. We're very excited to have Dominic Esposito here, and he is going to talk about his opioid spoon project. Here's Dominic.
Thanks, Cindy. Yeah, and I want to make this as interactive as possible, so maybe I'll speak for like 5 minutes and then probably open it up to kind of questions. So, because I really want to make it kind of, people want to know what we're about and our mission statement. So I'll start off with the action we did, which was really June 22nd of last year, 2018. I dropped an 800-pound burnt heroin spoon in front of Purdue Pharmaceutical. It kind of, from there, it's just sort of kind of went crazy. We had the New York Times there, we had Associated Press, Hartford Courant, our own videographer, so it was really a huge event. We had a lot of police officers showed up, so they wanted us to remove the spoon. We wouldn't remove the spoon, and I'll talk about why the spoon and what my personal battle is with opioids. So the spoon, we didn't remove it. It was impounded for 2.5 months. It was sat in Stanford jail. We finally got it out, and the gallery owner was arrested, but he was released right away. But it took months for the trial to sort of end, and he was given what's called accelerated rehabilitation. So it's basically like a probation for a year. So the town, well, at least the judges were relatively upset with us, although the police officers were really on our side. I mean, we had to have probably close to 10 or 12 police cruisers there, and they're the guys on the front lines. They understand exactly what we're doing. They didn't want to arrest us. They kept getting escalated. So first was the guy, the police officer on the bicycle came, and he's like, "What are you guys doing here?" And all this is on our website, so you can see it.
Did they bring the SWAT team?
It was absolutely crazy. If you see the way they were dressed, because they thought we were like, kind of terrorists, kind of showing up to this thing. So, and so then, the captain came, then the chief of police, then they called the state attorney general's office. So it just kept getting escalated. Having the press there also was a big deal. So, so that kind of put us on a map, and that photo was shared basically all over the internet that day. We were like, if you even if you plugged in and if you went to Google and you typed in Purdue, the spoon would come up. So it didn't even matter if you put the spoon up. So that's just to tell you how many hits in terms of we were the #1 news article that day. And it's still getting used. Even there was an article just 3 weeks ago in the New York Times, and it was on the front page of the New York Times was our spoon again. So
what was the date, just so the camera
knows? It was June 22nd of 2018. Right, so.
And then 3 weeks ago.
So then we've done more demonstrations since then. But maybe I'll take a step back. I'll talk a little about demonstrations, but I'll tell you a little bit why the spoon. So the spoon it's a dark symbol. It's nothing. It's the reality. It's the truth really that's out there with the epidemic. And it's never intended to be kind of a joyous moment. It's intended really to be sort of this dark kind of remembrance of what's gone on. And the link there is that 80% of substance use disorder, people who are on opioids or heroin, actually start on a prescription opioid, right? So that's the link. So that's the connection. So that's why Purdue Pharma, and they really were the sort of the grandfathers of this whole marketing scheme behind why we find ourselves in this situation in the United States, right? It's a supply issue, right? So we've had this for 20 years. Prescription drugs have been readily available. Nobody's been monitoring it, even to this day. We've had some changes in the CDC, new guidelines, and the prescription patients registration. That's all been in the last 18 months, right? So so you've had this sort of unabated, and they've gotten fined, right? They were fined 600. Some of the stuff maybe you guys know, but they were fined $634 million in 2007. So what do? They actually step on the accelerator. They launch a generics brand version of it, actually tripling their market share in the market, and then they stop other people from coming in. So they're absolutely the epitome of corporate greed in this country, and what we've allowed it as a society to happen, right? Because at the end of the day, we voted in a lot of these politicians who've taken money from Purdue Pharma. So we're really out there trying to dismantle this web of influence that's gone on for the last 20 years, right? So it starts at the pharmaceutical companies, but it's the pain advocacy forums, it's the politicians, it's the distribution companies, even the pharmacies,
FDA.
the FDA as well. So, and the link that I've had to this has really been my brother. So my brother's been struggling with substance use disorder for the last 12 years. It's something, that's in and out. He's been incarcerated. He's been, he's been through everything, that you can imagine, all the recovery homes, the sober homes, it's trying to get a bed. It's like this whole thing is like, you're just, not only is it a disease, but you're actually fighting this battle. It's gotten better, don't get me wrong, in the last 3 years, things have just gotten immensely better, but it's all because of community effort and people like you guys who are out there getting this stuff done. It's not been because of federal intervention, and the reason why it hasn't been is because of money, right? There's just so much money being made and so much money being poured into stopping, into allowing this stuff to continue, right? So, although there's a lot of rhetoric, nothing happens, right? And so we've gotten, so that's really the reason why. And so for me, it was more like a cry for help. It was like, I need to do something that's going to raise awareness. And I personally didn't think it was going to get that much attention. And like I thought, it would be great kind of demonstration and maybe somebody would pick it up. But, so we have a whole team behind us. We have, a lot of volunteers, but we also have, publicists, social media expert. We have, website designer, graphics designer. So the whole thing's just gotten bigger and bigger, which just started as, me and one other person. It just kind of gotten really kind of, now we're turning into a 501c3. We just had our first board meeting yesterday. We're not officially one yet, but we've gotten applications in, so it looks good. So it's really been mostly kind of out of pocket right now, the money, kind of doing these. So if you sort of fast forward to what we've done since then, we had a large conference in Boston in January. We try to educate other groups about what we're doing and why we're doing and why we think it's so important in our mission statement. So we had 32 organizations come in from all over the U.S., some of the biggest ones like Facing Addiction, YPR, Young People in Recovery, another one out of Philadelphia. So very large kind of organizations come in. So we've gotten real national reach. We had Dr. Andrew Kolodny was there. Nan Golden, she's been a huge activist with us. She was there the whole day. She's another artist she did the whole demonstration at the Met and the Sackler, and she's the reason why a lot of the museum money's been given back. We've been working with her and her group. And that was January 17th. I wish I'd known you because I would have invited you, but
I don't know. I can't remember if we even existed then. But
yeah. But it was a great
Next year,
conference.
maybe.
And so now we've been asked to do more. So I think we're going to do one in Philadelphia sometime in the fall, and then potentially DC in December. So and they'll get bigger and bigger. So we've done more action. So we did Rhodes Pharmaceutical, which is that offshoot of the generics brand that Purdue did. This is down in Coventry, Rhode Island. So we dropped another spoon there. That got, again, national press. We had the Associated Press. We had a lot of media there. I was on the Times Square up on the TV, which was pretty cool. This is like 50-foot. So and then and that no one got arrested for that, but it puts Rhodes Pharmaceutical on the map, and people are like, I don't even know these guys were in my backyard, right? I mean, you go down to Washington Street in Coventry, you don't even know that there's this huge generics brand manufacturer down there, and they're absolutely massive because it's sort of, you kind of get lost in thinking about market share, and this is what a lot of the pharmaceuticals say. Well, we're not that big. Purdue is not that big, but if you actually take the actual milligrams of what Purdue produces, so like they claim they're only 2% of the market, and then with Rhodes they're another 6%. But it takes like something like a Percocet. It takes 24 Percocets for 180 milligram of OxyContin, right? So, in terms of actually weight, if you were to weigh they're much bigger. My guess is they're probably closer to 30%, right? Because a Percocet market is one thing, but then it's just still an opioid.
So Rhodes manufactures Percocet.
No, Rhodes manufactures OxyContin, but they do it under generic brand manufacturer.
Okay, got it.
And then there's also where Purdue was trying to launch buprenorphine, their version of it. So here they are, creating the epidemic and then wanting to profit off of it by creating the Suboxone, right? I mean, isn't that that is the most evil thing that you can think of, right? Anyways, that's why roads, we did that February 7th. And then, and then, and they have, they'll talk about it, but, and you can read Maura Healey's, let me take a step back. We also, the first produced spoon, we actually gifted to Maura Healey, the state attorney general, October 26th of this year, last year, sorry. And so that belongs to her. We're trying to find a spot for it in Boston. And she's been a huge proponent of what we're doing because we're highlighting exactly what she's doing in her lawsuit, right?
Yep.
And like her lawsuit, the first one came out like June 7th, and I think we had the spoon was already kind of in production. We were ready to go. So sort of like the timing was there, but we didn't know that she was going to do this massive lawsuit. We just knew we've been reading this stuff for the last for a long time. So, and then April 5th, we did another big demonstration down in the Health and Human Services building. So that was FDA. So each spoon is stamped, and that's the photo you see there on the backside. That's the FDA.
So what happens to each spoon?
Well, that one they didn't confiscate. So they also, I think they know it creates more press by just kind of letting you do your thing. It doesn't escalate it. So like the first one ended up getting so escalated because here you have an arrest, you have the spoon being impounded.
But thank goodness in a way, right?
Yeah.
I mean that really.
And so we try, but they're kind of like we don't. They know about it, so they don't really want to. And we're relatively peaceful. It's not about being arrested. All that I think it really is about just kind of putting them on the map of what they've done. And the FDA for us is it's pretty straightforward. I mean they've allowed a lot of these opioids to be gone through their admission process relatively easy, and they're making it very difficult for things like buprenorphine and even in the generics version to actually get out there, right? So they're actually stopping the cures, but then they've allowed all these opioids. Even in fact, in November they approved Dasuvia, which is even 100 times stronger. This was supposed to be for military use, and that's how they snuck it in. So they had a military contract, and then they turned the military contract into a general population contract. So now Dasuvia is out there as well, right? So this is 100 times stronger than any synthetic opioid than the opioid that's even out there, right? So they're actually allowing stronger and stronger prescriptions. This was just November, right? You're talking about, and it gets back to like corporate greed. So that's what we're about. We're trying to raise awareness about what's going on, and I think it's really important for us. We're not out there saying opioids don't have I think you had surgery. You probably took opioid. That's okay. Like that's what I'm saying. Like things like you have a surgery that you need, right? But to give out a 60-day supply of it, right, for someone who just had a sprained ankle or a wisdom tooth. How many moms I've met who have lost children because they've got their daughter had their wisdom tooth pulled, and then that leads to a heroin addiction, right? I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, we sat and we did rallies with a lot of these, and that's what we're very close to Team Sharing, because they're a national grief support. Who we've met a lot of their members, unfortunately, right? That's why they're there. We've met this parent to parent, this GRASP. There's a lot of kind of grief support organizations nationally. So if you sort of fast forward, we're also about raising awareness. It's not just this accountability about who's accountable for this, which I think is really important, is because you need to sort of stop this corporate greed. And I always kind of say it, and it's kind of drastic, you really kind of have to cut the head off the snake, right? So it's like, if you can cut the head off the snake, then it's like, if you're a board and you're sitting there at another pharmaceutical company, you're about to, approve a new drug or want to push a new drug through marketing, and there's a chance that you're going to go to jail versus paying a fine this time, right? Because we just put these other guys in jail, which we're not sure if we're actually going to happen or not. That's a different conversation as a board member that you're going to have, right? If there's a potential for you to go to jail versus paying a fine, which is not even your money in the first place, right? It's shareholders' money, so you just pay to play, right? Versus you go to jail. That's a different. So that's where we need to get to. Like if there's real criminal charges against some of these CEOs and executives, then I think the whole landscape starts to change, right? So that's really what we're hoping for.
So are you focusing on the pharma companies, only the pharma companies, or the distribution?
Everything, yeah, the whole thing. Like that was our conference. We really kind of tried to show in our conference just how big this web is, right? It's not just the pharma. It starts at the pharma because that's where all the bulk of the money's made. But then it goes to distribution, it goes to the pharmacy companies, that goes to the pain advocacy forums who push all this. They educate even our doctors, right? So there's Tufts Sackler Medical School. I mean, Purdue goes in there and literally creates the literature that educates our doctors on how to prescribe opioids. I mean, it's crazy. And that was in the Maura Healey lawsuit. I'm not making this stuff up. So it's like...
I know there's been some demonstrations against what's happening at Tufts. I know there's been some publicity
Yep.
about that. Do you see any change in the way at least Tufts is approaching it? I know Harvard is stuck their heels in the ground about
Yep.
continuing to accept Sackler money, but there are other prominent museums, Guggenheim, Tate, that have stopped accepting the money. But the Tufts thing is different than the Guggenheim.
Yes, yeah. So I was just asked the same question by a reporter, and so like the way I sort of classify it is like, so you have the museums that's a way for them to feel good rubbing shoulders with other, billionaires, right? So it's like like kind of a way to wash your sins, although they don't agree that they have any sins, right? So that wouldn't even work. But the medical schools, that's much more devious, right? That's a whole new level of evil this is my opinion, right? And I don't think that's going to happen as easily, right? Because a lot of these schools really do need the money, but we really need.
Come on,
if
they do not.
No,
need the
like
money.
Tufts, this Tufts always wanted to. This is the backstory that I've heard. Like, so Tufts always wanted to compete with Harvard, right? Up until like 20 years ago, they were not at that level. So they started taking money from people, from anybody really to get to that level of endowment. And so Sackler kind of put Tufts on the map.
Really?
Yeah. So that's the version I've heard. I mean, this is all kind of like, so.
It's difficult to return endowment funds.
Yeah, very
the way that
difficult.
they're structured, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of them are tied legally to so they're like, okay, we'll give you the money if we get to create, we have our name on the front, and there's what do you call it? A chair. Yeah, you have a chair that's from our company. So so all those things are legally binding, but it doesn't mean it can't be dismantled, right? But that's going to be a lot harder.
Okay.
The museums, it's been. I didn't think it would happen this quickly with the museums. So I mean that was just amazing. So first it was actually the National Portrait Museum in the UK, and then it was the Tate, and then a week after that was Guggenheim, and so now.
And you guys are all aware of what Nan Golden has been doing at these museums. Can you speak a little bit about that, since I know you're involved in that too? Yeah,
so she organizes these basically these die-ins. So a lot of people show up, and most of it is pretty covert. Like people don't know what's happening. So we were there for the Guggenheim one, which there was probably about 10 organizations there. It was all kept a secret, which was amazing. So the one that was told was like, they told the press that it was going to be at the Met, right? So they did do the Met, which was just down the street, but half hour before the Met, so the reporters are already there for the Met. So it's basically like, here, then you can do this thing with the reporters. You just have them sign it as you have them sign an embargo, so you actually give out the information. They're under, ethical codes not to reveal it. So then they show up, and all these demonstrators at the Guggenheim, we had prescription written on the on pamphlets. They were dropped all at the same time down that. So that photo that was just amazing.
Famous photo.
Yeah, and then all the banners came down, and then there was a die-in at the bottom. So it's all raising awareness. I mean, it's activism. A lot of people brush activists aside, especially politicians. They're going to get burnt out. And you're right. I mean, there are, like, if you go any weekend, you go to Washington, D.C., there's like 20 rallies happening. None of them get any publicity, right? So for us, it's all about having some disturbance, right? Without creating a complete havoc, but having some disturbance. That's what tends to get the press and gets the acknowledgement that there's people out there who care about this, right? So that's the difference between sort of a rally versus kind of being somewhat of a disturbance.
So did you make the first spoon?
Yeah, yeah.
And who's making how
that's
many
all me.
spoons
Yeah,
you're
we have 4 spoons now. So we did. Yeah, so we have a whole new process. Like the first one was done kind of a metal fabrication process. So that's like how you would make a car fender. Right? We use English wheels, so it's welding, grinding, and there's a lot of very labor intensive. And then the new ones we're making in solid aluminum, so they're still as big, and they're just as heavy because it's actually solid, like 2-inch aluminum, and those are cast. So we have 2 foundries that we're working with. Still very labor intensive because you have to clean. These are sand casted and welded, so it's very.
Who's paying for the spoons?
This is all out of pocket. That's why we're starting a nonprofit, because it's gotten to be a lot. So I've been fortunate in my previous career to be able to do this now, but I need to sort of start having, and we've gotten a lot of people want to donate, people want to give us money. We're not set up for that. I'd rather not do it until we actually have proper channels to do it, so that we can get audited. There's no sense of this is an artist just creating fame for himself, and that's not what we're about.
Right.
We have tons of volunteers, and our reach has been so incredible. Go ahead.
I'm sure there are many people who have no idea what a spoon has to do with any of this. I do,
Yeah.
but millions
That's right.
don't. What are you doing to educate people?
Yeah, and that's every time we do like I started off, I kind of made that connection. So that's every time I get on the media, I try to make that, like we've done I've done personally a lot of interviews with different. I just was in Le Monde, which is a national newspaper, and they did a full page. The guy spent 4 hours in my barn with me.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, so we are trying to educate people in terms of what the connection is there.
Call them out.
Yeah. So the connection is basically that 80% of heroin users actually start on a synthetic prescription opioid. So that really is the connection. So that's why it's so important. And the spoon is used, it's a symbol, right? It's just like any symbol. My mom would call me screaming that she had found another spoon in the house, right? And so that's what tends to happen is these spoons go missing. And so for me, this call that I would get, because you think your son or daughter or whoever it is or brother is doing well, is in recovery, and then all of a sudden I got this call like, okay, this was really at the peak of my brother's 6-7 years ago, saying, okay, you know what, my mom calling, I found another spoon. So to me, this spoon was, and it's other things, right? So it's cotton, all the cotton swabs go missing in because you got to cleanse this thing. So there's a lot of symbols out there. This is just one of them. For me, it's a big one, and that's the connection really is, and they use it to basically what you do is I don't have to explain this to you guys, but maybe on the screen, but you would put your heroin or even your opioid, any opioid that you would crush, into the spoon with water, and then you'd basically, or distilled water, and then you'd cook it with a lighter or a candle or whatever you have, and then basically you siphon it out through a cotton swab or something into a needle. So that's the connection, and it doesn't have to be heroin. It could be a crushed opioid pill, it could be a Percocet, could be anything, and that's just more of an immediate high.
And you've depicted that in the spoon. You have heroin in the spoon,
Yeah.
so it doesn't look like it's a baby spoon or.
Yeah.
spoon's
I
been-
know on one of our Facebook posts or somebody's email, somebody pushed back a little bit about how horrible it was that the symbol was this dark,
Yeah.
negative, and does it bring back stress or trauma to people and families? Which I can
Yeah,
see. So how
definitely.
do you address that
Yeah,
concern?
so like that's not like I completely agree with that. But that's also like raising the awareness of what's going on, right?
Right.
So even as a community, this is my version of, this is why we're trying to do it with the spoon, is because I feel like we're within the opioid community, right? We know a ton about what's going on, right? And you're forced to do it because of survival, right? You want to save your daughter's life, your son's life. You learn a ton about it, right? If you're not involved in it, or you don't know anybody who's involved in it, you really don't need to know anything about it. So that's why it's the similarities to the HIV crisis that we had in this country the parallels are incredible, because it's this stigma. You don't learn about it until you actually get involved in it, right? So, and then you learn a ton about it. You read all the books. You read about relapse. You're forced, because it's a long drawn out disease, right? There's no immediate 6-month cure, right? You're forced to learn about it. So with the spoon, we need to reach people, even though it creates this, I call it kind of like a PTSD for some people. We need to reach people and educate people outside of our bubble, right? So that's really what we're trying to do. And it does that because it's a 5-second like visual, like you look at it like art and you're like, oh, it creates a conversation. What is this about? And then you make the connection, right? So that's what we're trying to do with it. And I think it's happening. The media gets it, which is important. And I think we're starting to reach people outside of our community. And I do that a lot anyways. Like I'll go speak to, friends or who know nothing about it. And I'll tell them about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I kind of bring them into the community, and you'd be surprised. Like people they really don't know a lot about it. So I don't know if that sort of.
Yes, that's great.
So we're doing something new, and this is I think when Cindy, because we've been advertising this like crazy, and I'll give some of these out. So we're taking the spoon, and these you can kind of post anywhere, but these are just only the first 3 dates. So we're taking the spoon. I don't know if I think I've got enough, but because we've turned the spoon into awareness as well, so it's not just about kind of pointing fingers. So it really is about raising awareness. So we are taking a spoon, almost like a white canvas. Won't have the heroin depiction on it, and we're starting a tour with it, starting in Marlborough, Mass, at this 5K. Remember Your Angels with Team Sharing. And over a 3.5-week period, we're taking it basically up to New Hampshire, back down, all the way to end up in Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and end up in Philadelphia. And we're allowing people to sign the spoon of the name of their loved one that they've lost, right? So it's basically turning the spoon into like a memorial in some sense. So, and it'll be really powerful because, we're having them, the response has been completely overwhelming. Like I thought we'd only have like 5 or 6 locations. We have 10 locations already. We probably have another 5 that I just need to get on the website. So we've gotten completely over, and it's been kind of national leaders, like people who follow us. And it could be a lady in Bethlehem in Pennsylvania. So she's like, why don't you come to Steel Stacks, which is the former Bethlehem Steel, which has been converted, and there's a concert going on. So she talked to the concert goers. So our spoon's going to be outside while 6,000 people walk through.
Is that just a random concert, or is that a concert for a specific?
No, it's just they do it like I think they start like their summer concert series or something. So
Is this in the old factories?
Steel Stacks it's called.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we have women in Fredericks, Maryland. She's like, she sets it up in a park. She pays all the permitting fees, and she's getting the word out. It's been incredible. We're working with the city of Philadelphia. The mayor of Cambridge is a huge proponent of what we're doing. He's got a whole agenda for us for the day.
Who is the mayor of Cambridge?
Mayor
Okay.
McGovern. So he is a huge proponent of harm reduction. So we've been working with him, and I've been trying to connect him with people nationally.
So you're taking your spoon to Marlborough in the morning, and then you're taking it to Cambridge in the afternoon?
Yeah.
That's great. I love the idea of having people sign it, because then you can get the impact of how many people we've lost.
It's like the quilt.
Exactly.
For the AIDS,
Yeah.
What's going to happen to the spoon after you're done with the tour?
So for the month of September, and this is 95% done, but we're doing a ceremony with the mayor of Boston, August 30th. And that'll be
August 30th?
Yeah, so that's the day, but it's a Friday. It's the day before opioid overdose day. It'll sit in City Hall Plaza inside for the month.
This is with
of
Mayor
recovery.
Walsh?
Yes, yeah. We're working really closely with the task force there. They're very receptive of what we're doing. So is the city of Philadelphia as well. They're working closely with us to bring it there as well. But we'll see. So we've gotten. I sort of had it. I grew up in the city of Boston, so for me it's like it's sort of natural to do it there. But we'll probably get other requests, and we've gotten a request to do it down in Florida, do the signature tour, and the whole South, and then we've gotten Ohio and Chicago. So this could continue on for years. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's crazy the response we've gotten on the signature. So
has anybody? I'm sure this is not the case, but has anybody from the pharmaceutical companies, or even some of the families who have younger people who may themselves have an opioid use disorder. Has anybody reached out to you from that side?
No, they haven't. They're sort of, we thought that would have, but I think they've got 1,600 lawsuits that they're dealing with right now.
This is just the Sacklers?
Really?
Yeah, the
That's
Purdue,
all.
yeah.
That's all.
So they're
More.
they're completely overwhelmed. My guess is what they'll do is
They'll settle?
No, they won't even settle. They're gonna go bankrupt. They're gonna declare bankruptcy. So that's why they settled with Oklahoma. Oklahoma was really kind of a punch in the stomach for us because they shouldn't have settled. There was a lot of talk out of the Attorney General's office out of Oklahoma that, these guys are going to go to jail and blah, 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 and then they settle for $270 million, and then what happens with that money? Yeah, I mean, it's money that could be used for community centers, but a lot of it goes into roads and buildings and, and plowing. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, it's kind of like what happens, right?
I don't
These
think
things,
Maura Healey's going to settle.
I don't know. Until it actually happens, I
won't believe it.
I won't believe it because they have so much power. I mean, the rhetoric that I've heard from a lot of attorney generals has been huge, and then it just kind of, this is not. We're not just talking about Oklahoma. Same thing happened in Kentucky in 2015. They all settled. Same thing happened in Virginia in 2007. They all settled. It just what happens is the political pressure to just take the money is so much, right? And I don't know that that's going to happen this time around. I do think Maura Healey is going to send these guys to jail. I hope.
I hope so too.
So on one hand, you have, a lot of awareness being raised.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you've got settlements like yesterday, for instance, West Virginia,
Yeah,
where the
yeah.
distributors settled really small amounts.
That's right.
$7 million. That sets a precedent for other settlements. So when you have such a massive uprising from the general public,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, the settlements are happening really fast and in smaller
Yeah.
amounts, like, how do you go this way?
Yeah, so that's a good question because what we're actually trying, or we haven't figured this out yet, but because they really won't even give us a lot of details around it. We have people working to get more details. So the big case is happening in Cleveland, Ohio, is the MDL, the multi-district lawsuit. So that's basically amalgamation of like 400 lawsuits altogether in this country. Maura Healey's not part of it. The big lawsuits that you hear on 60 Minutes, they're not part of it. They're just kind of stepping away. They're trying to do their own thing. Anyways, that's Judge Polster. We think the case is going to be starting to be heard the end of September. We'll probably end up protesting down there with a spoon, doing something. I haven't actually talked about this in public yet, but that's what so we're trying to like get close to some of the lawyers down there. We have a whole team that's been talking to, I can't remember the term. I'm not a lawyer, but we do have people who are, one of our volunteers down in Connecticut is trying to figure out with other groups when all those cases are starting to get heard. So that's kind of what we're trying to do is raise, in our mind, you speak a lot about this as the court of public opinion, and that's really important. And I think the tide has shifted, right? You've seen, even comedians take it on, like John Oliver, that series he did for 10 minutes. That was absolutely hilarious, right? I mean, and so Trevor Noah did one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Even, Fox, even, what's his name? The Fox reporter, Tucker Carlson. So he did something on it 6 months ago, right? So this really is a bipartisan issue. I'm not saying it is one side or the other, but you're starting to see this public opinion starting to change. But you're right; these settlements really are, they're really frustrating because I think we need to really kind of push and make an example and send these guys to jail, right? They really need to go to jail to set the precedent. And you could still get the money. People are like, oh, you won't get the money if you go to jail. No, you confiscate their entire, like if El Chapo was found with drugs, what would you do? Like you take their boats, you take his car. Why wouldn't you take the Sacklers' money? $13 billion that they've profited off our lives and our children. Just take it all, right? So, I mean, you can still do it. I mean, but you need sort of federal. Now I sound like a complete nut job, but this is like.
I think you sound very logical.
I know.
But yeah, sorry. I just get so upset with because it all has to do with corporate greed. That's what it all that's what all this comes down
Money's
to.
more important than lives.
Yeah.
Well, it's been the status quo for such a long time.
Yeah.
Just the way corporations are handled in general. So that's hard to break down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hard to break down. Do we have a new FDA head?
We have a new.
I can't remember where
He
we're
hasn't-
at with.
So the day we did, April 5th, was the day that the outgoing head left. And so we do have a
Right.
new head coming in. I don't remember who, but Alex Azar is the
Temporary.
no, so he's the Health and Human Services
Okay.
head. So that's a cabinet position from Trump. So so I don't know who the new
Yeah.
FDA head
And
is.
how
He's
that
been
person
nominated.
is
Yeah.
gonna.
They all
approach this.
it almost doesn't matter. They all talk a good game. Like they all like. What did you know? And I don't want to make this political, right? But like President Trump declared a national emergency for opioids.
And nothing happened.
September 2017. What's happened since then? Nothing. They've been investigating and all this stuff, and nothing's happened, right? And we have activists who like Ryan Hampton. These guys. You can put them in. Like this is what you need. You need activists like that to kind of come
Who's
in.
Ryan Hampton?
So actually, he'll be at the Marlboro event and possibly our Cambridge event. So we've been working really closely with him. He's an author of a book called American Fix, which I would recommend you'd buy and read. And he's also he runs this project called Voices Project. So it's a lot more a kind of recovery, but it's also about accountability. So he's worked closely with us and Nan as well. And then he's part of another group called Wake Up FDA, which
Right,
is
I've
another
seen
advocacy
that.
group.
Yeah.
So very powerful. He's on TV all the time.
Is he in New York?
He's in LA. So
Okay.
but he's coming out. He's actually staying with me that night. So
Wow.
but he.
Is the spoon still at the FDA? You said
No,
you put it there. So
we
where
put
are
it there.
Where are the 4 spoons that you have
They're
now?
they're in my studio in Westwood.
Okay, so there's none on site?
No address.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's none on a site right now? They
No,
stay.
no.
They get
Yeah.
placed, you have a rally, and then you take it home?
Yeah, typically I
Sign
try
it and take
to,
it home.
yeah. So they do come, they're all individualized, so like the FDA actually says FDA on the stem of the
Right.
spoon. The other one says Rhodes Pharmaceutical on it. The Purdue one, I couldn't figure out how to do it. It was just like we were kind of in a rush to do it, so. But the new spoon that we're doing with the Signature Tour, that is a brand new one
with the
without
any emblem, so to speak.
without emblem and without the depiction of the heroin depiction in it. So it's just like, and what's amazing is we're gonna have people sign it in purple Sharpie. And we didn't even do this on purpose. Someone else brought it up to us, and our logo is purple, so we'll end up with like this purple spoon with all these signatures on it. I mean, I can't tell you how humbled I am and overwhelmed we are, by the response we've gotten by so many people wanting to kind of host an event or participate.
Where in Cambridge is the thing held?
Right in front of
City
City
Hall.
Hall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we do have, if you find that you want to bring it up here, I'm local. I'm only a half hour away, so if you want to do a small event, we can do something here.
Well,
It's
that's
not-
something
not
that
hard.
you and I talked about, and maybe we should go offline to talk about that, unless you want to wrap up and say anything else before Devin finishes.
I think I'm okay. Yeah, there's nothing really. I've sort of like the last thing I want to say is just basically. I think everyone has some sort of skill set or talent, right? And for me, it was creating art and having kind of this design sense of what I wanted to do. And I always encourage people to just use that talent and use it to kind of help out, right? Whether it's like if you're into graphics design, get involved with a community effort. If you're in social media and you're a young kid and you want to help out, go approach a group and try and help out with their social media. There's a lot of stuff that we all have some sort of talent, and we really need to kind of use that talent to save lives and really help others who need us. So that's what I would say is as much as like you want to it's not just about coming into a group and like let me put my hours in. It's like use your talent, think outside the box, and really try to help people. And so that's what I would end with.
Thank you so much. You're
Yeah.
so articulate, and I wish you didn't have to be doing what you're doing.
No, I know.
Brother,
Yeah, how's your brother?
He's not doing great. It was November. Was like it was like Thanksgiving. I don't know what it is with the holidays. It's like crazy,
terrible, yeah.
and he's just not doing good. He's I don't know. He's like he ended up losing his job and losing his apartment, and it was all working well. Like it was just felt like it was going in the right direction, and then it just kind of fell all apart. And the last few months have been really kind of tough. So he's back in with my parents, and they're being used, it's like you know, it's a story. And then like I'm trying to get my parents to be a little tougher with him, and that's not working. It's really hard. Kind of even as a sibling, it's really difficult. And what do they say? Like it affects the entire family, right? It's not just because it's like family functions, and then he can't like I'm. Some family coming over tomorrow for an event, and like, you know, I can't have him there. He's like, you don't know how he's going to show up, right? It'll ruin the day. It'll be just all about like him, and so you want to include him and you want to do all this stuff and give him a chance, but you've given him like 100 chances, right? So we're starting to figure out. It's really hard. Sorry, I don't even want to get down to that route,
Yeah, no,
but you
it's
guys
so
have all
challenging.
dealt with it, so.
Mm.